Teamer Emerge versus Esper Control. Brad Carpenter on the left. Had a real tragedy of a weekend 2 weeks ago at the Invitational.
Yeah.
Was in first place, looking to have his first Invitational top 8. Did not hit it, but you see 12th on the leaderboard. He still could get one of those spots in the Players' Championship.
Lossett had a weekend that felt about the same during the Season 1 Invitational.
Yeah, these are kind of two players who at one point thought they were going to be in the Players' Championship, neither of them making it there. So Brad starts off on Vessel and 2 Forests. For Joe, it's some tap lands, but his mana's down. And he'll play Pilgrim's Eye. Brad, not the only Pilgrim's Eye player at the table here.
It's a standard all-star. You know. A lot of decks play it.
Surprising to see it in a deck that isn't Teamer Emerge. It's like really less impressive when you're just playing it for what it does.
Yeah. Joe does have his one copy of Emrakul, the Promised End, so this helps him get Delirium online.
So Brad Carpenter cracks his Vessel, gets a Yavimaya Coast, has 4 card types already in the graveyard: instant, creature, sorcery, enchantment. Plays the land, plays his own Pilgrim's Eye. If that dies, he'll be up to 6 card types in his graveyard. Or 5, rather. The artifact will be the 5th.
Carpenter playing the World Wake Pilgrim's Eye, Joe playing the reprint. I think it's clear which one of those is better. Joe even playing those old white border basic lands.
Well, I do kind of like the, see Brad's is the head-on view, and Joe's has, it has perspective on it, so it looks like it gives it the sense of action, which the art, that's what diagonal perspective lines tend to do that. But enough with the art. Nissa, the Planeswalker from Joe, will take care of the Pilgrim's Eye.
Sorry, I nodded off during your explanation.
Pilgrim's Eye. If there was anything bad you could say about Pilgrim's Eye in Standard right now, it's that Liliana's really good against it.
That's not a good matchup for Pilgrim's Eye.
I think outside of that, the card's just clearly an all-star. But
right.
It's in the graveyard now. Joe hits for 1.
And Joe only playing 2 copies of Liliana, so that was a pretty significant play that turn.
Traverse the Ulfin Vault for Brad Carpenter. He is Delirious, 5 card types in his graveyard. See if he just... It's hard to see what he wants to get, though, right? He's going to get Primal Druid. I mean, he can't get another Pilgrim's Eye. Liliana's still there.
Exactly. This is a Liliana-proof Pilgrim's Eye. Presumably this means that Carpenter's hand, he's ready to go with something to emerge.
Yeah, he does have another blue source in hand, and he has an Elder Deep Fiend. So that would chain his way up to it. We go back over to Joey hits with Pilgrim's Eye.
19 more turns of this, Brad.
Joe will play Infinite Obliteration. Remember, they have 1 copy of this in the main, and I think he's naming Elder Deep Fiend. Yeah, there it is, taken out of the hand. He saw that one coming. So Brad's remaining hand is Kozilek's Return, 2 lands, and 2 Emrakuls. Now, if I'm in Joe's spot, I would want to look through Brad. Yeah, okay, Brad takes the Deep Fiends out and then hands it to Joe to look through.
Yeah. You don't want to pass on something like that.
This deck, much more about Emrakul, plays 2 Deep Fiends main, usually a 3rd in the board.
I like the name of Deep Fiend specifically because Carpenter just tutored for that Primal Druid. That's clearly the card that he's setting up here, though the Emrakul likely to be the higher impact card in the matchup.
Well, keep in mind there's 5 card types in Brad's graveyard, and he's got a Shrine of the Forsaken Gods in his hand. As soon as he hits 7 lands, he casts Emrakul, and he's already at 4. It's not actually that far off.
Joe does have some Jace Vryn's Prodigies in his deck, so theoretically he can cast Infinite Obliteration again this game.
So I want to give you a heads-up play on Joe's side. So Liliana's plus is up to 1 creature, right? If he's going to plus the Liliana's turn, he's going to want to not target any creature, because if he pluses it, then Brad top decks Mountain. Brad can cast the Kozilek's Return and ramp himself to Emrakul a turn earlier. It's one of these really weird things, right? You'd be like, no, don't target your Primal Druid.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That is about the sorriest sounding rampant growth I've ever heard of.
And now kills Pilgrim's Eye too. It's great.
Oh,
it's
yeah. I apologize. Anything that kills Pilgrim's Eye is probably a very high leverage play.
Joe's going to crack an Evolving Wilds. Well, not going to matter. Liliana's going to -2 and get back nothing. Pass for Joe. And we go over to Brad Carpenter. Plays a shrine, passes. Looks like he picked up a grapple that turn.
And with that minus there, Joe knows that those Emrakul are looming. Maybe he just thinks he has to get on the table in a more significant way. Wants to possibly find that. Well, I guess he has Dragonlord Slumgar, not Dragonlord Orjitai. So his deck is just not very good at closing games quickly. And really, the Liliana ultimate is kind of his best avenue for that.
Well, Joe does have a copy of his one of Descend Upon the Sinful in his hand. He's got 3 card types in his graveyard. What he needs is some sort of card that if Brad Emrakul's him, just solidly answers Emrakul and can't be misplayed. So like if he had a Ruinous Path, that doesn't work because Brad's going to make him do something stupid with it, right?
Right.
But it's hard to misplay the Descendant Upon the Sinful. You can't just like cast it at the wrong thing. Here's Dark Petition from Joe. He was hoping, I think off that -2 on the Liliana, to become a Spellmaster, but he didn't. So this is just 5 mana Diabolic Tutor. Demonic, yeah. It'll be fine. It also, that's his 3rd card type. Let's see what he gets. He's looking at Jace.
Yeah, like I was saying, trying to build up that Jace to flashback the Infinite Obliteration, likely his best line against these Emrakul.
And that's got to be it. Joe's going to plus the Liliana. Grapple with the past end step from Brad Carpenter. Vessel, Shrine, Forest. Not much for Brad to get back. He's going to get back the Ishkana, which I suppose if he has 2 Emrakuls, it's his next best threat. So.
And unlike against a Band Company, Ishkana actually generates significant table presence in this matchup.
And here is the Graph Widow. She makes 3 spiders. Brad passes. He still has, now with Enchantment, he's kind of got land, artifact, creature, instant, sorcery, enchantment. 6 card types. He will have Emrakul with 1 mana to spare next turn. And there are the 3 spiders. We go back over to Joe Lossett. There's this interesting thing that if Joe doesn't present pressure, Brad just may not use the Emrakul.
Yeah, we can just start cracking in with these spiders.
2nd Dark Petition from Joe.
Yeah, the only thing he really has to be mindful of, there's no way that Carpenter is putting Joe on 2 main deck Infinite Obliterations. That's just lunacy. I can't imagine that that's happening. I
mean, there's a world where that's okay. But usually because instead, if the deck wants more than 1 in the main, they actually just play another Dark Petition. So Joe is going to petition for Transgress, but there are 2 copies of Emrakul, so he'll get 1. And then the other.
Okay, double Transgress will certainly do it.
Yeah, I was going to say, I thought it was surprising he got 1 because he knew there were 2. Then it made sense. There is still a 3rd Emrakul in Brad Carpenter's
I was going to say, I'm building up to the top deck Emrakul so I can say, remember they came as 3.
Yeah, the 3 legendary Eldrazi of Emrakul, Emrakul, and Emrakul?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's definitely a better team than Emrakul, Kozilek, Ulamog.
It's like the Time Spiral plotline. Primal Druid from Brad, he'll swing. Maybe take care of this Planeswalker. Or at least take care of the Pilgrim's Eye.
Yeah, get one off the table.
Yeah, they're going at Liliana. So, Ishkana's blocked Liliana down to 1.
And Joe has Delirium.
Well, why are you checking something off your bingo sheet?
Both players have Delirium.
Oh, that's gross. I don't even have that on my... Oh, no, I do have that on my sheet. Boom.
Weak.
No, that's better. All I need is a 7-power Kalitas. Joe doesn't even play that, does he?
And speaking of Delirium.
No, he has him on the board.
There's that Descend Upon the Sinful.
Yeah, so from Joe, Descend Upon the Sinful, exiles everything, gives him an angel.
And Brad really wants to find that Emrakul. And so Kozilek's return in Brad's hand here. Looks like there's a Traverse the Ilvenwald.
Well, that's great. There's one Emrakul left in Brad's deck. He gets a mountain. That's for 7. There's Wretched Griff. Interesting. So he didn't get his remaining Emrakul. Griff will have to do.
Unclear what the last card in hand was.
I'm interested. Yeah, because I think he can still cast it because he has 6 card types, right? That'd be 7 mana. We might be missing something here. It's not often that a guy with playing an Emrakul deck just forgets Emrakuls in his deck. It's kind of your whole game plan. So I don't...
He's up to something.
We'll find out. Go back over to Joe. If he can get rid of the last Emrakul in Brad's deck, it's going to be so hard for Brad to win. He just doesn't have cards that will be up to the job.
We saw Joe gesturing at the Pilgrim's Eye in his graveyard, likely explaining to Carpenter how important that is for every deck in Standard.
Yeah. It gave him the Delirium for the Descent Upon the Sinful. The card is just good. You should just be playing it in all your decks, you know. Bant Company, Pilgrim's Eye. Mono White Humans, play Pilgrim's Eye.
Yeah, it's a 3-mana creature. It fits right into Bant Company.
Right. Zombies, probably should be playing Pilgrim's Eye. The Angel will attack.
Now, if Carpenter had a Pilgrim's Eye, he could double block the Angel here, though he's just relegated to taking 4 here.
Sorin, Grim Nemesis from Joe. Is he even going to kill the Wretched Griff? Oh, just not even. He's going to draw Languish and deal 4 to Brad. Just no respect. Doesn't even care about Wretched Griff.
And with Brad, as low a life total as he is, this Sorin is very significant just as a card that hangs out and pumps. And with that last turn, Joe probably is aware that Carpenter has a 3rd Emrakul somewhere in the 75. He's suspicious that maybe Carpenter has some other way to set it up this turn, so just getting this clock under.
Sure. Carpenter will play Nissa's Pilgrimage. 3/4. He is Spell Mastered. Into play. Into hand. Plays it. And he's got to pass. As much as he would like to attack and kill the Liliana, that Shambling Vent plus Angel plus the Sorin is... Yeah, I don't think he can do that.
If Joe just has like a Grasp of Darkness, possibly has a lethal turn.
Sorin, well, how about Silumgar's Command? Dealing 5 to Brad? That's...
I have revealed a number of Force of Wills to Dark Confidant. Being able to just do that to your opponent,
yeah,
that feels pretty strong.
This card seems like a fine draw for Joe Lossett. And he's reaching for 5 mana, or maybe just 3 of it. He'll go for a different kill spell. It's going to be Murder. All right, Wretched Griff's gone, and so is Brad Carpenter. Game 1 over to Joe Lossett.
Okay, and specifically Joe being able to cast the Infinite Obliteration. He cast it on that turn. It was very clear that that was Carpenter's plan to set up Elder Deep Fiend, so he hit Fiend there. And the fact that he was able to draw into the double Transgress to deal with the 2 Emrakuls that he had previously seen, that allowed Joe to clean that one up. So really well played by Joe Lossett.
Yeah, the Esper control deck, you know, main deck Infinite Obliteration. I do really like, you know, but someone who was a Seasons Past player, while that was still a thing. The card Dark Petition is, I think, the card I will actually miss the most when Standard rotates. The idea that you can play this toolbox control deck and you can main deck something like Infinite Obliteration without hating yourself, I like that.
Yeah, I like the deck design space that it opens up, for sure.
Yeah, and it really plays to the Joe Lossett strategy. If you recall, his last big Standard deck before Esper Control was 5-color Bring to Light. And this was a deck where he was dark using cards like, you know, Bring to Light to find one of Silumgar's commands, to find an Infinite Obliteration, to do this toolbox sort of package. And it doesn't surprise me that Joe is doing a very similar thing here in Standard.
Yeah, just trying to build that late game inevitability with a lot of options.
All right, so let's look at the sideboards then. Starting with Brad Carpenter. He's got some Jaces, Explosive Vegetations, Dryads, Clash of Wills, and then a bunch of one-ofs here. This is one of the few matchups where his Kozilek's returns are no good. So what do we... I imagine we're just going big.
Giant monsters are what Joe is scared of, so that Ulamog coming in off the sideboard, the extra Elder Deep Fiend, that stuff all seems great. I like Den Protector as a way to just keep on piling on the value and the pressure. The Ishkana is reasonable here because you can apply more pressure that way. It's not the most exciting find. And the Clash of Wills seems significant. Joe's deck is very clunky, very slow. Having that counterspell seems good.
Yeah, the thing I like, which he's designed out of the board for this matchup, also, so Lashweed Lurker, they generally board in to deal with Planeswalkers, because the deck's actually kind of soft to those.
Sure.
But Coax from the Blind Eternities. This is a card that Michael Majors in his article wrote that, not Michael Majors in his article, but a lot of the Pro Tour teams, they said they had missed this card when they played the Pro Tour.
Yeah, and Joe's answers to Emrakul is trying to transgress it, infinite obliteration it. Yeah, so the Coax here to get that back seems solid.
Well, players here are going to get ready for Game 2. Now, you might remember Brad Carpenter 2 weekends ago, a tragic invitational where he missed top 8 despite a number of win-ins. He's rallied back here, though, to a 4-0 start here. That invitational, though, so for Brad, the player from St. Petersburg, Florida, he's got 3 open top 8s. And as part of Team Next Ridge Nexus, he is still one of the rising stars on the SCG Tour. You know when you start an invitational, 11-1 is only a matter of time till you see yourself in those top 8s. And that has really been it. Brad, in, week out, has been one of the stronger performers here on the tour.
Yeah, see there, fantasy football fanatic, another Brad that's an FF freak.
Yeah, that invitational, by the way, ended up being taken down by Liam Lonergan. He was a relatively unknown player from the North New England area. Had 1 IQ win to his name with Elves, then took Elves to the Invitational, went 8-0 in the Swiss with Elves, then went 3-0 all the way through the top 8. He is your Invitational champion. He's easily the biggest question mark at the Players' Championship, and now he is also the face of the Elf Warrior token, as we see that debuted here. This is his prize, one of them, for winning the Invitational.
Dwinnen's Elite's little buddy. A significant addition to the Elf deck in Modern, for sure.
So this limited edition invitational token is being printed now. We will start giving it out on September 23rd, and you can get it at any Open, any Classic, or any order from StarCityGames.com of $5 or more. So you're going to want to get this one because when you need Elf tokens, you don't just need one, you need a lot of them. Elf decks don't stop at one. So you look forward to that at the end of the month. If you're still trying to get the Max McVD Clue token, those will still be available up until then, but time is running out on that one. I guess when I make Clue tokens, I don't stop at one either.
Yeah, generally no.
I'm playing my Tamiyo's Journals, you know.
Yeah, that's the first card that comes to mind when I think of Clue tokens.
Briarbridge Patrols. That goes in my fight deck. Just make them fight a bunch of things, get a bunch of tokens. You're saying there's more playable Clue cards, perhaps?
Perhaps. That's a little underexplored. Maybe Tireless Tracker could break into Standard at some point.
Daring Sleuth. I like that guy. Actually, he was kind of a letdown. It is a card that says clues matter, but it's really not very playable, which stinks because I was a big fan.
Graph Mole does not generate clues.
No, but that guy's great.
But clues matter.
Well, Carpenter on a mulligan. Joe Lossett up a game here at 4-0. He is a strong bet in any of our opens to just make day 2 every time with a deep run, with the same strategy and the same deck. And you got to respect that out of a player. Joe looking for his 3rd straight invitational win. So for the player from California, flies out to all of our events. He's one of the most well-known names on the tour. You see he's got 21 open top 8s, 5 wins, and 2 invitational top 8s. That conversion rate on top 8s to wins, one of just the real strengths of Joe Lossett.
Yeah, running right about 25%.
Well, there's 8 people, so I'd take that any day.
Certainly.
Brad starts on Vessel, double Forest again. Joe will just tap land it up. This time, though, you expect Brad to be far more threat dense. So he goes and cracks the Vessel.
Mm-hmm. Unlikely to see too many Kozilek's returns in this game.
3 lands and a Primal Druid. Brad takes a land. You see he picks the Shrine of the Forsaken Gods. Delirium count to 3. Has Primal Druid. He'll go ahead and cast that and pass the turn. Explosive Vegetation. That's come out of the sideboard for Brad Carpenter, which I actually really like. If you're not going to try to emerge your way up to these creatures, maybe just be a ramp deck. Those are good against control.
Yeah, got to cast them.
Transgress from Joe. We'll get a look at all the cards Brad has. So he has the veggies. He's got a Gather the Pack, a Lashweed Lurker, and the Yavimaya Coast.
I'm inclined to take the Explosive Vegetation off of this hand. The Lashweed Lurker is the only payoff card here, but the Vegetation's his best avenue to actually be able to cast his significant spells.
And that's what it'll take. Yeah, Lurkers need what you sacrifice the Primal Druid. You can go ahead and put a Planeswalker on top if Joe's trying to bank on a Planeswalker. But the easiest way to slow Brad down, is just take the ramp spell.
And casting Vegetation makes it a lot easier for Brad to top deck and cast an Emrakul.
Yeah. Vessel of Nascency, that's the draw from Brad. Which Joe knows. We go back to his turn. Land 4. You see an Emrakul of Joe's own in his hand. He'll just pass. Vessel will be cracked. Joe, careful not to play a non-land permanent. He really wouldn't like to see Lashwood Lurker emerge here. But Vessel finds Den Protector for Carpenter. Puts Nissa's Pilgrimage, Grapple with the Past, into land in the graveyard. Got instant sorcery, enchantment, creature, land, Delirium, count 5.
And there's an Emrakul off the top, but Carpenter is a bit away from casting that one.
Yeah, it's one of those things, as soon as he hits his 7th land, Brad's online, and you can really count on that out of the Temur Emerge deck. The 7th land is when those shrines turn on, and it's pretty... That's generally just the Emrakul's good to go.
Speaking of Emrakul.
How about another one, and a Nissa? A great Gather the Pack from Brad Carpenter.
Now, Brad would be in a lot of trouble if Joe had Infinite Obliteration.
Yeah, it'd be a great spell here. Now, also of note, Brad doesn't have a land. He shows those 4 cards. Joe doesn't know about the last one. The last one's Emrakul. Another one. And now Joe, he's not spellmastered this, so he can't
Right, he can't petition and cast Infinite Obliteration on this turn.
You see him weighing his options. He's not on just how much time he has. He's got a Summary Dismissal in hand. He also has a Painful Truths that he'd like to cast. But you see, he's concerned enough about Emrakul at this point. Here's Nissa from Brad. It's going to resolve. This is a very conservative line from Joe.
Yeah. I wonder, there's got to be something he's sitting on beyond the dismissal here, because this is not a turn that Carpenter could have cast Emrakul.
Yeah, you can't just hold up a 4-mana counterspell for the whole game and hope that that works.
Well, it just doesn't make sense to hold it up on a window like this.
All right, he's got ultimate price for the Nissa.
Okay.
And then he'll knock it down with that. But Brad did add another land. As I mentioned before, he's 2 lands from casting everything. So Joe draws. He's got an island.
Joe does have enough time. He should be able to get to 7 lands, cast Truce, and leave up Dismissal in the same turn.
Yeah, even if he doesn't have the 7th land next turn, he can still make that play with the intention of top decking it. That island is... He has 2 basics. His battle lands come into play untapped. A Morph face down for Carpenter.
In general, though, I think I like the Truce on the previous turn. One important thing when you're playing counterspells is to know what turns you actually need to leave that up.
Summary Dismissal from Joe.
Or I guess Joe just really cares about this Den Protector. That's also totally reasonable.
Den Protector is pretty good. I mean, if you're playing a counterspell game, right, it does work. You see Brad, he's just casting the entire sideboard here. Look at this. We've seen him cast a Jace. He's got a Nissa. He's played an Explosive Vegetation, a Den Protector, a Lurker. These are all cards out of his sideboard. It's possible that he boarded in all 15. There's not actually one in here that's... I guess, probably not the 2 Gnarlwood Dryads, but he could have boarded up. The other 13 at this point are all bets to be in the deck.
Sure.
Joe grasps down the Jace. Brad suggests he should have done it to Primal Druid, but no.
He's still got that Druid. It's one of the marquee cards of the Temur Emerge decks.
Well, it's one of the problems in this matchup is that Joe just is never going to kill it.
Yep.
Painful Truths from Joe. 3 colors. Down to 17. 6 lands in play for Brad Carpenter. The moment he finds that land, he's got Emrakul coming. Here's a Transgress, but 2 Emrakuls. It's going to be a little bit harder. Transgress, Lurker. Or Emrakul, Lurker.
That's not exactly what Joe wanted to see here.
Be interesting if he just takes the Lurker, right? Brad can cast it next turn.
Yeah, it depends how resistant Joe's hand is to the first Emrakul.
Yeah, if it has a hard sweeper in it, a Descend Upon the Sinful, then he's fine. Because there's no way that Brad can mess that one up.
Right. If Joe thinks that he can beat 1 Emrakul, then it's probably fine to just take one of the Emrakul. If Joe thinks that he has to set up Infinite Obliteration for both Emrakul, then he takes the Lurker.
Yeah, he was 1 mana short, so he has a Dark Petition in hand, and he was hoping that Brad missed the land, and then Brad did, and now Joe's going to punish him really hard for it. Because you talked about how good Infinite Obliteration would be, we're going to see it. Unless that card Brad drew is a counterspell, this was Joe's gamble, and it's going to work. Triple black off Dark Petition. The window there was for Brad to hit a land, and he didn't. And now it's gone, yeah.
And not only is Emrakul just 2 copies in Brad's hand, it's his most important card in the matchup.
Absolutely. Now, he does have Coax from the Blind Eternities.
Sure.
Ideally, what you try to do when they do out of this deck, when they take your threats, is it's this whole package where your cantrips can find you creatures. So you'd mill your Coax, you'd find the Den Protector, you'd Den Protector Coax, get the Emrakul out of exile and cast it again. But Den Protector's gone too. And it's only a 1 of, I believe. So that line's gone. Now Brad has to just legitimately draw the Coax. And he does all his cantrips can't find they don't find sorceries.
Right.
So Joe taking the Emrakuls. It's just Elder Deep Fiend in Brad's hand. He will draw. There's the land. It is a bit late. But he can cast Deep Fiend. He does have 8 mana.
Right. Given the Shrine, he could have just cast it last turn.
He only has single blue. So he can't, because the Shrine it works if it's your 7th land.
Oh, I was miscounting the lands. I apologize.
Yeah. He has 7 lands now, so he was 1 mana off in a bunch of different ways.
Okay. Yeah, just has the 1 blue off of the coast.
Right, so he has to cast it for 8 instead of emerging it for 7. Here's Obnixilis from Joe. Pluses it to 6, goes to 16. And this is going his way again. He'll play Jace, pass. If he gets to untap here, yeah, Brad better play that Deep Fiend.
Yeah, there's no way he would pass on it here.
That Jace is about to flip, and when it does, Brad's losing all his Deep Fiends.
Also possible that Joe could just go for Ulamog. He did see that in Brad's deck when he was fingering through it.
Sure, that would be a big show of strength, right? He'd say, I don't care about your Deep Fiends, I'll just take your Ulamog.
Joe has a lot cleaner answers to Ulamog, of course, or to Deep Fiend than Ulamog. Brad can't quite cast an Ulamog just yet, but it's a higher impact card that he's more likely to actually lose to.
Joe has team eyeing Emrakul here. He can use Jace to get an additional card type in his graveyard. Not positive that's enough to cast Emrakul just yet. He's got instant and sorcery. Those are pretty given in his deck. Unlike Brad's deck, he doesn't always get that many more types. I believe land also joins.
Yeah, Joe's deck is more of a Emrakul eventually kind of deck.
I don't really like that. I'm kind of an Emrakul now kind of player. As early as possible. Turn 1 would be the sweetest.
Emrakul early and often.
So for Joe, tap 6. Dragonlord Silumgar will take the Deep Fiend.
Steely D, as they call it.
The D is for dragon.
Well, yeah. Not Dan, like the band.
I don't know. I actually don't know what Silumgar's first name is. Could be.
Mr.
Mr. Silumgar. Jace will flip into a Planeswalker. And it'll just plus. 2 mana up for Joe. And things are looking good for him. It's hard for the Teamer Emerge deck to kill a Dragonlord Silumgar. Here's another Deep Fiend. All right. Good draw for Brad. He'll be able to tap all of Joe's things. Now all he needs is a way to kill the dragon and get back his octopus. And then, well, that's the start. Things get rough from there, too.
Teamer Emerge, in particular, post-sideboard in this matchup, not going to be great at dealing with Dragonlord Silumgar. The Kozilek's returns, most likely in Carpenter's sideboard.
Well, the biggest card in this matchup that I've seen out of the Teamer Emerge decks that Brad's actually not playing today, he attacks down the Obnixilis here, is a lot of times what they'll try to do is win this game with the card Evolutionary Leap, and it's actually a very good answer to Dragonlord Silumgar. is when every time Joe goes for something like this, that idea that I would find the Den Protector to get back the Cokes, way more, way more reasonable. How about the fact that Primal Druid's been on this table the entire game?
Sure.
That card is among their best weapons in this matchup.
Yeah, makes
Brad
sense.
has not played it today, and that's not necessarily bad. You see he's going to coax for one of his cards. The issue is that it makes it harder to win the game from this kind of place.
Right. And this is likely not the matchup Brad was expecting to play against, maybe even the entire course of the tournament.
Brad just checks the sideboard and then says, no, I'll take Emrakul. He's going to take Lashweed Lurker. Pass. Yeah, I was going to try to put the dragon on top of Joe's deck. It's just not really enough. This Lurker will be good, but keep in mind that Jays can flashback Dark Petition on this board, so Joe has an answer.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, he can go get it.
So if Joe was just trying to set up a Transgress the Mind, it would have just hit the Cokes anyway. Then maybe it is right for Brad just to sit on it.
Well, here's Emrakul from Joe. And Brad has had enough. 2-0. Joe with Esper Control moves to 5-0. And does anything beat this Esper Control deck? Doesn't seem to be the case for Joe Lossett. Not even sure it's the case for Shaheen Sarani.
Yeah, I'm thinking we're going to have to update the graphic, call the deck Unbeatable Esper. I'm ready to call it. This deck looks pretty solid. And Brad had a lot of tools that are very good against the Esper deck. Obviously, all those Emrakul, the Promised End, they're phenomenal in this matchup. But the Esper Control deck is actually pretty good at stopping you from ever being able to cast it.
Yeah.